everybody. My name is InJin Moon and welcome to our home church. You know, at our home church, we live each day with God as an honored member of our family. And so if we want to create an environment of love in our home, I think it's important to understand what kind of a heart is that. I remember many years ago, during one of the fishing seasons in Provincetown in Gloucester, I had the privilege of spending countless and endless hours on the boat with my father. And what I would love to do is not just prepare little snacks and lunches and goodies for my dad, but many times I would use that opportunity to read if I didn't have too many chores that I was responsible for. But I would love to just sit by my father and attack him with tons and tons of questions. And to my surprise, my annoying him endlessly never ceased to get a reaction out of him other than just his willingness and his happiness in answering those questions that I threw his way. But, I was listening to this song earlier as my husband played Amazing Grace, and that song for me is very much my father's song. It's one of his favorite songs, and I know it's one of the favorite songs in many Christian churches all across the country, and certainly in this iHome church it's one of our favorite songs. But every time that we had a celebration or an event, my father would always ask me, InJin, can you sing that song? And I would ask, can I sing something else? I sing it all the time, Father. But he said, no, sing that one. And I said, why do I have to sing it again? Because he says, because it's such a sad and a beautiful song. And to this day, when I think about my father, that song kind of encapsulates what my father or who my father has been in my life, because he, coming to this world with this responsibility to be the Messiah for the world, carried an incredible burden upon his shoulder. And when I asked him many years ago on that boat, I said, Daddy, a lot of people are saying that you are the self-proclaimed Messiah. Many people believe you are the Messiah. What is the Messiah? And he said to me, InJin, Messiah is one of the loneliest people in the world. And he proceeded to explain why. He said, Messiah is the loneliest person on the planet because everybody, everyone, every church, every pastor, every man and child and woman has their own wish list on their expectations of what a Messiah is to them. And I will never fit, or I will never satisfy any of those categories on that list, because God doesn't make messiahs depending on what we expect a messiah to be. God fashions a messiah because that's what God sees is needed for the world. And so coming to this world of ours to spread the breaking news of God, of true parents, why it's so incredible that the Messiah coming as a man can be fulfilled in this incredible thing called a blessing, in the holy matrimony with a man and a woman standing as God's sons and daughters. He realizes that trying to explain this to the world, to a world full of people with their own expectational wish list on what a Messiah is going to be an uphill battle all the way. But even knowing that he is the loneliest person in the world, he continues onward, and he continues in his persistence, in his dedication, in his constancy of spreading the word, the good news, or what I call the breaking news, with the rest of the world, because that is what his responsibility is. And so when I think about that time on the boat, about this very lonely man with an incredible mission, having to fulfill certain things in a very short time, one lifetime, and dealing with the world in the best of ways, even though the world may reject him, scorn him, persecute him, give him hell, he is still going to do what God asks him to do. And this is the man that I know as my father. And yes, he is my biological father, but he is also the man I call my Messiah. Because through him and through the beauty of understanding what the true meaning of true parents is to the world, I realize that for me as a woman, he comes to liberate me from 2,000 years of patriarchal understanding of our Lord Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was not meant to die on the cross. He was meant to be the true parents. He was meant to find a beautiful wife, to create a beautiful home, to create a beautiful family. But he never had that chance because his disciples rejected, could not understand. Maybe his disciples felt that their Jesus certainly did not live up to their expectations or their wish list of what a Messiah should or could be. And therefore, nobody was there when Jesus was crucified on the cross. And therefore, for over 2,000 years of Christian history, the world understood the message of Jesus Christ to be a message from a man, not a message from a beautiful couple or the true parents that he was supposed to have with his wife. And had he met his wife, then the Christianity as we have come to know it would have been a very different picture. The woman would have been standing together with her husband, working as equal partners, of equal value. Of course, each, the man and the woman having different strengths and weaknesses, different categories of maybe qualities that they might have as male or female, but equal in terms of their value as God's children. And my understanding and my own personal journey into trying to discover my worth as a woman of faith, would have been a very, very different one indeed. But for me, even though my father is my Messiah, it took me a long time to kind of arrive at that point in telling myself, now I get the picture. Because I was very much raised in an extremely strict religious home. I was literally hand-fed all the knowledge, all the teachings. Never really had a chance to process them for myself. And so when I went to college, I kind of used that opportunity to explore all different thought and all different ways of thinking. Because I wanted to test the divine principle to see if it could really stand the test of all the scrutiny that I would put it through. But one of the things that I realized coming out of my studies and coming to realize how incredibly powerful and beautiful the divine principle is the fact that there is this thing called the true parents. Women can find their worth. Women can find their value. Women can find their voice in a life of faith. And for me, that was extremely liberating. But we know that even in our own church history, everything had to be restored because of the fall. And just as Father had to restore many things in order for him to be able to stand in the position as the Messiah, my mother standing in the position as the victorious Eve, had to go through many, many difficulties in order to arrive at that victorious position. So until then, even in our movement, it wasn't so clear what the role of a woman needs to be. And so growing up under leadership that are all men and that are very Asian and very Korean at the top of the leadership, you start wondering, where do I fit into this picture? Is there really a place for a woman to be a vibrant member of this congregation, a vibrant member of the community, a woman having a voice and a say in everything that goes on? Well, it took me a while for me to see that unfold, even in our own faith. But when my father really came to understand that my mother stood in this victorious position as a victorious Eve, together with him as the true parents, then he started pushing her forward. And he started pushing everybody forward, not just true mother, but all his children, and really encouraging us to be living testaments of the divine principle, whether we felt ready or not. And during this time, I went through a lot of questioning and difficulty, in that I felt like, it was like fighting against the tide that was pulling me out to the ocean. How do you fight against this whole institution? And then years later, my father put me as the head of the American movement. So how do I, as a woman, handle the responsibility, handle this institution that has its own ways, rules and regulation and set ways of doing things, and try to move it forward? It was an incredibly challenging thing for me. But one of the things that just kind of kept me going, despite all the difficulty, is my father's just constant support. And my father's constant pushing me. InJin, you have to do what you have to do. Don't ever give up. Even if the world falls, even if the sky falls on your head, you get up and you continue on. And it's that kind of an incredible support, or what I call my amazing grace. My dad was my amazing grace and is my amazing grace to this day. His constant support and pushing me forward. Don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. That's what propels me and compels me to do what I do. And so, in his memory and in the legacy that I would like to see celebrated each and every day of my life, and in each and every day of my children's life, I think that it is really important to remember that this man that we have come to know as our true father has really given it his best and his all, and he's given us everything that we really need to do. And the only thing, just like the way the song says, I was once blind, but now I see. All we need to do is to just open up our eyes and see what our true parents has brought to our lives and what we need to do. And Father has many times explained to the children and to me on the boat, what you need to do is just very, very simple. God said it in the Bible. We as God's sons and daughters need to fulfill the 3 blessings. Be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion. And when I was growing up, those words were really, really scary words. Be fruitful, multiply, take dominion. These are pretty scary words when it comes from the mouths of male leadership with a very, very deep and a gravelly voice. These were supposed to be blessings that God bestowed on his son and daughter after he created them in the book of Genesis. But for a young child, for me, these were three things I needed to be fearful of. I was absolutely petrified that every morning I got up, it would be fruitful, multiply, take dominion. I mean, even using the word dominion, it just sounds awful. Why do I want to go around the world dominating people, subjugating people, taking control of people? It just seemed so archaic. But if we bring them into relevancy up in the modern day, it's actually quite hip. We can understand it as inspire, empower, and connect. And so when you say to somebody, be fruitful, well, the Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines be fruitful as to get a good result. For instance, if you want to get a good result as a straight A student, there are certain things that you need to do. First of all, you have to be alive. You have to be healthy. You have to have a balance in your life, and you have to have a clear focus on what you want to accomplish. And without that, you're just not going to get good results, no matter how wonderful you are as a person. So if we are supposed to be fruitful as an individual, what kind of a person should we be is the next question that I would ask. And the answer that comes back to me is that when we are focused on being how we can be fruitful people, the word that comes to mind is inspire. Why the word inspire? Well, the word inspire is defined in the dictionary as something that stimulates a person to be creative or to act creative or actually start creating. It's something that compels you because you are just so excited about life that you want to do, you want to express, you want to create, you want to bring something beautiful out of you and share it with the world. Well, I use the word inspired when we're thinking about how an individual should be in relation to God, because when we realize that we are God's sons and daughters, when we realize that God is our heavenly parent, you cannot help but be inspired. How can you not be inspired if God is your father and mother up in heaven? That means we are princes and princesses here on earth. How should we act? How should we live our lives? Shouldn't we, as that royal family, live our lives with dignity, with honor, and with love? For me, that's what being inspired is. So if you're an inspired individual and you know that God is your father and mother, you're going to take your life seriously because it's a gift. And you're going to focus your energies on how to really be fruitful in this gift of a life that we have been given. How we can maximize all the talents that we have, not only be internally excellent, but be externally excellent. And be excited and enjoy the process as we're going through our journey. And the second blessing, multiply. For me, that was the butt of a lot of jokes growing up in a religious community. We would basically go around, poking fun at all our friends saying multiply. Basically have as many children as you possibly can. But, my father would be the first one to say quality, not quantity. And if you're going to have a lot, well, then you need to provide and you need to make sure that the children are taken care of and they are well cared for in the home. And so for me, when I think about the word, and I have thoughts about the word multiply numerous times in my life, for me, what it kind of encapsulates, end up encapsulating into a word is the word empower. You start out with an inspired individual, inspired because they realize they have a real and a genuine and an incredible relationship with God because God is our parent up in heaven. And then God shares with us his son and daughter in the form of the true parents of all mankind. And what do they bring? They bring the gift of matrimony, or what we call the blessing, through which the world can graft on, literally graft on to God's lineage. And it may sound kind of fantastical, but that's where faith comes in. But we believe that the blessing, the gift of the blessing, is this incredible thing that literally transforms the lineage from fallen man to God's family. And so with this gift, a man and a woman is not just bound in matrimony by two families, but a man and women are bound together with God as the heavenly parent and with world as its one family. It's an incredibly wonderful thing. And so how can you not be empowered? And, empowered means to have power and authority. But what kind of power and authority are we talking about when we're thinking of ourselves as God's representative couple to the world? Well, if we were God's ambassadors to the world, how should we be as a couple? How should we be? Should we be loving? Should we be nasty to each other? Should we be bickering, constantly tearing each other down publicly, this and that? Or should we try our best and still maintain our integrity as a couple so that we can continue to share the great news of God and true parents and the need for the world to see itself as one family? Well, I believe that that's what God is trying to say when he says multiply. Basically, be that empowered couple that is going to be the cornerstone or the first building block of a peaceful world. It starts with the individual, then it goes on to the family. And then where does it go? God tells us in the third blessing, take dominion. And oh my goodness, that just sounds awful. It sounds like, a whole huge army is going to go in somewhere and just take over with tanks and guns and all sorts of things. But of course, that's not the kind of dominion that God is talking about. In this day and age, the word that I think best exemplifies what God is talking about in terms of the third blessing is the word connect. Father talks about being a natural subjugator of men and women, in that if you are or want to be or aspire to be a leader, you can naturally subjugate them by serving, living for the sake of others. And that's the incredible thing about this whole philosophy of really living for the sake of others and taking care and living your life to make the world a better place, is that our directional arrow is always kind of pointed outward, when we stand as a couple, in that we're not just there to just take care of our individual responsibility, which we have to take care of, but at the same time, we are there as one family to another to become that connector, to really connect the world to God, our heavenly parent, connect the world to the blessing, so that we can really be one family under God. In a way, when you look at the example of how quickly Facebook, the company Facebook, literally took over social media, it's just a fascinating tale, because the only thing that it really did was connect people to one another. But it connected people so well that it ended up connecting the world to each other, and naturally became a leader when it came to social media. And so when we think about the three blessings, it's not like some archaic words floating out in space. These are very tangible messages that God is saying when he says to us, empower the individual inspire the individual, empower the family, and connect that family to the rest of the world by helping the world to see that we belong as one family under God. And that is how we fulfill 3 blessings that God, our Heavenly Parent, wants us to in our lifetime. And when we do that, then we realize, oh my goodness, every individual born in this life, every family that is struggling on their journey towards becoming that great connector, well, the only thing that we really need to be thinking about is how do we help each other? How do we care for each other on this journey? Not really taking up the wish list and putting it against people saying, well, you are not my Messiah. You can't possibly be my Messiah because you don't fit my list on what a Messiah is supposed to be. Instead of thinking of True Father or anybody else in our lives with such a wish list, maybe the most important wish list that we should have for each other is how we can help each other fulfill our 3 blessings and create this incredible world with God as our honored member of our family, and with all of us as brothers and sisters living peacefully, living with love, living truly inspired lives, empowered because we have our families behind us, connected because we just love sharing with the world the breaking news of this incredible message that our true Father brought. So as we continue on that journey, let's try to think about how best we can love and support each other in these trying times, and know that it has always been God that has brought us thus far, and it's God that will ultimately show us home, as it is sung in the song Amazing Grace. So in memory of my father, and in memory of the teachings that I would like to live each and every day, I wish you a wonderful Sunday, and have a great week. Bye-bye.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was
you have questions and comments, leave them below this video or go to injinmoon.com and use our contact form. Thank you.